If you think that swapping white bread for whole grain is protecting your heart, you're about to discover why that might be the most dangerous nutritional myth of the last 50 years. I'm Dr. Brooks, and for the past 2 decades, I've worked with cardiovascular patients who followed every conventional guideline, ate their whole grains religiously, and still ended up in my office with blocked arteries and skyrocketing inflammation markers. What I'm about to share with you goes against everything the food pyramid taught us, but it's backed by emerging research that the bread industry desperately doesn't want you to see. The truth is, every time you eat bread, even the expensive sprouted kind from the health food store, you're triggering a cascade of events inside your arteries that acts like sandpaper on your blood vessel walls. But here's the thing that gives me hope. Your body has a built-in repair system, and I'm going to show you exactly how to activate it using 7 specific foods that can start reversing this damage within 72 hours. These aren't exotic superfoods or expensive supplements. They're sitting in grocery stores right now, and when combined in a specific way, they create what I call the arterial reset protocol. Now I know what you're thinking. You've heard doctors say bread is fine in moderation. You've seen the heart-healthy labels on whole wheat products. You might even be eating multigrain toast every morning because your cardiologist told you to increase fiber. So let me explain what's actually happening inside your body every single time bread enters your system and why your arteries are paying the price. When you consume bread, regardless of whether it's white, whole wheat, or ancient grain, it breaks down into glucose faster than you might realize. The glycemic impact of 2 slices of whole wheat bread is often higher than a candy bar, and here's why that's catastrophic for your heart. The moment that glucose surge hits your bloodstream, your pancreas has to release a massive wave of insulin to deal with it. This isn't a one-time event. This is happening every single time you eat bread, multiple times per day for most people. That insulin spike causes your blood vessel walls to become inflamed and sticky. Imagine your arteries as smooth highways. Now imagine someone throwing glue on them. That's essentially what's happening. The technical term is endothelial dysfunction, and it's the first step toward atherosclerosis, heart disease, and eventually, cardiac events. But the glycemic impact is only part of the story. Modern bread contains compounds that most people have never heard of. There's something called wheat germ agglutinin, a lectin that can bind to your arterial walls and trigger an immune response. Your body literally treats it as an invader and sends inflammatory signals to attack it. Then there's the oxidized omega-6 fatty acids from the industrial seed oils used in commercial bread production. These oils, when heated during baking, create lipid peroxides that circulate through your bloodstream and damage the delicate lining of your arteries. It's like sending tiny razor blades through your cardiovascular system. And here's the part that shocked me when I first discovered it in the research. Bread also contains something called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These are formed when sugars bind to proteins during the baking process, especially at high temperatures. AGEs accumulate in your arterial walls over time, making them stiff and inflexible. This is why so many bread-eating populations have such high rates of arterial stiffness and hypertension, even when they're eating the so-called healthy versions. So what do we do about this? How do we reverse the damage that's already been done? This is where my research over the past 15 years becomes critically important. I've identified a specific set of foods that work through different biological pathways to repair arterial damage, reduce inflammation, and restore the flexibility of your blood vessels. Think of your cardiovascular system as a sophisticated repair and maintenance operation. When you give it the right raw materials, it can rebuild itself. When you keep feeding it bread and processed grains, you're essentially trying to fix a car with duct tape. Let me walk you through the 3 most powerful arterial healers I've discovered, and more importantly, the exact way to prepare them to maximize their cardiovascular benefits. The first one is going to surprise you because it's been demonized for decades, but the research is absolutely clear. We're talking about pasture-raised egg yolks, specifically the deep orange ones from chickens that eat their natural diet. Here's what makes them so powerful for your arteries. They contain a phospholipid called phosphatidylcholine, which is literally the building block of your cell membranes, including the cells that line your arteries. When you consume high-quality egg yolks, you're giving your body the exact materials it needs to repair damaged endothelial cells. But here's the biohack that most people miss. You need to eat them with something acidic, like lemon juice or apple cider vinegar. Why? Because the acid helps emulsify the phospholipids, making them up to 40% more bioavailable. I tell my patients to make a simple dressing with egg yolk, lemon juice, and extra virgin olive oil. It's essentially a medicinal mayonnaise that delivers therapeutic doses of these repair compounds. The second critical food is wild-caught fatty fish, particularly salmon, mackerel, and sardines. Now, you've heard about omega-3 fatty acids before, but let me explain what they're actually doing at the arterial level that makes them so essential. Omega-3s, specifically EPA and DHA, get incorporated into your cell membranes and fundamentally change how your cells respond to inflammation. They compete with those damaged omega-6 fatty acids from bread and seed oils, literally pushing them out of the membrane structure. This is why you can't just take a fish oil pill and keep eating bread. You need to eliminate the source of arterial damage while simultaneously flooding your system with the repair compounds. Here's the biohack for fish. Always eat it with black pepper. The piperine in black pepper has been shown to enhance the absorption of omega-3s by up to 30%. It also contains compounds that help stabilize the omega-3s in your digestive system, preventing them from oxidizing before they can be absorbed. The third powerhouse food is something that grows in your garden right now, and it's been shown in clinical studies to reverse endothelial dysfunction in as little as 6 weeks. We're talking about dark leafy greens, specifically arugula, spinach, and kale. These vegetables contain nitrates, not the synthetic kind in processed meats, but natural plant nitrates that your body converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the master regulator of your cardiovascular system. It tells your blood vessels when to relax, when to dilate, and how to regulate blood pressure. When you eat bread and spike your insulin, you suppress nitric oxide production. When you eat these greens, you restore it. But most people are making a critical mistake with how they prepare them. They're either eating them raw in salads where the nitrates aren't fully available, or they're cooking them so long that they destroy the enzymes needed for conversion. Here's the biohack. Lightly steam them for exactly 2 minutes, then immediately shock them in ice water to preserve the enzymes. Then dress them with something fatty, like the egg yolk mixture I mentioned earlier. The fat carries fat-soluble antioxidants like vitamin K2, which works synergistically with nitric oxide to keep calcium in your bones and out of your arteries. This combination is so powerful that I've seen patients reduce their arterial calcium scores by double digits in just 3 months of consistent use. Now, let's talk about something that most doctors never address with their heart patients, but it's absolutely critical for long-term cardiovascular health. We're talking about heavy metal accumulation in your arterial walls. You might think heavy metals are only a problem if you work in a factory or live near industrial pollution, but the reality is that we're all exposed to low-level chronic amounts of lead, cadmium, and mercury from our food, water, and air. These metals don't just float around in your bloodstream, they actually embed themselves in your arterial walls, where they act as inflammatory triggers for decades. This is why some people can do everything right, eat clean, exercise regularly, and still develop cardiovascular disease. They have a hidden heavy metal burden that's creating constant low-grade inflammation. The good news is that certain foods act as natural chelators, meaning they can bind to these metals and help escort them out of your body. The most powerful one I've found is cilantro, but it needs to be paired with something that can actually transport the metals out once they're mobilized. That's where chlorella comes in, a type of algae that has a unique cellular structure that traps heavy metals in your digestive tract and prevents them from being reabsorbed. Here's the protocol I use with my patients. Blend a handful of fresh cilantro with a teaspoon of chlorella powder, some lemon juice, and water. Drink this every morning for 30 days. The cilantro penetrates deep into tissues and mobilizes the metals, while the chlorella acts like a sponge to soak them up before they can recirculate. I've seen patients reduce their lead levels by 40% using this simple strategy. The second chelator that deserves attention is garlic, specifically raw garlic that's been crushed and allowed to sit for 10 minutes before consuming. When you crush garlic, you activate an enzyme called alliinase that converts alliin into allicin, the active sulfur compound that gives garlic its smell and its medicinal properties. Allicin has been shown to bind to mercury and cadmium, helping to remove them from your system. But it also does something else that's critical for your arteries. It stimulates the production of glutathione, your body's master antioxidant, which is essential for repairing oxidative damage caused by both heavy metals and bread-induced inflammation. Most people cook their garlic immediately, which destroys the allicin before it can form. The biohack is to crush it, let it sit exposed to air for 10 minutes to allow the enzymatic reaction to complete, then add it to your food at the end of cooking, or better yet, consume it raw, mixed into a salad dressing or sauce. Let me shift now to something that might be even more important than what you eat. We need to talk about your blood flow and how to optimize it, because even if you have the healthiest arteries in the world, if your blood isn't flowing efficiently, you're still at risk. This is where a molecule called nitric oxide becomes absolutely essential, and I mentioned it earlier with the leafy greens, but I want to go deeper into why this matters so much. Nitric oxide is produced by the cells that line your arteries, and its job is to keep those blood vessels relaxed and dilated. When you eat bread and spike your blood sugar, you damage the cells that produce nitric oxide. Over time, you lose the ability to make enough of it, and your blood pressure goes up, your circulation suffers, and your risk of heart attack and stroke increases dramatically. The solution is to flood your system with nitric oxide precursors from food. We already talked about leafy greens, but there's another category of vegetables that's even more powerful: beets. Beets contain the highest concentration of dietary nitrates of any vegetable, and when consumed regularly, they've been shown to lower blood pressure by an average of 8 to 10 points within just 2 weeks. But here's the critical detail. You need to consume them in a way that preserves the nitrates and allows for proper conversion. Most people are either buying pasteurized beet juice where the beneficial bacteria have been killed, or they're roasting beets at such high temperatures that the nitrates break down. The optimal method is to ferment them. Fermented beets combine the nitrates with probiotic bacteria that help convert them into nitric oxide in your gut. Make a simple lacto-fermented beet preparation. Shred raw beets, pack them in a jar with salt water, and let them ferment for 5 to 7 days. Eat a quarter cup every day, and you'll notice improved circulation within a week. The second part of the blood flow equation involves breaking down something called fibrin, the protein your body uses to form blood clots. In healthy amounts, fibrin is essential for wound healing, but when you eat bread and processed foods, you create excess fibrin that makes your blood thick and sluggish. This is why so many people are put on blood thinners after a cardiac event. But there's a food-based solution that works through a different mechanism. We're talking about pineapple and papaya, specifically the enzymes bromelain and papain that are concentrated in these fruits. These proteolytic enzymes break down excess fibrin in your bloodstream, essentially thinning your blood naturally without the side effects of pharmaceutical anticoagulants. The biohack here is to eat them on an empty stomach, at least 30 minutes before a meal, because when you eat them with food, the enzymes get used up digesting the food instead of cleaning your blood. I recommend eating fresh pineapple core, which has the highest concentration of bromelain, first thing in the morning. Chew it thoroughly, then wait half an hour before eating anything else. There's one more piece of the blood flow puzzle that almost nobody talks about, and that's hormonal balance, specifically how excess estrogen affects your cardiovascular system. You might think estrogen is only relevant for women, but men accumulate excess estrogen too, especially from environmental sources like plastics and pesticides. When estrogen levels get too high relative to other hormones, it promotes blood clotting, increases inflammation, and contributes to arterial plaque formation. Your liver is supposed to break down and eliminate used estrogen, but when it's overwhelmed by the metabolic burden of processing bread and sugar all day, it can't keep up. This is where cruciferous vegetables become essential. Broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage contain compounds called indole-3-carbinol and diindolylmethane, which help your liver metabolize estrogen into its safer, less inflammatory forms. But eating them raw gives you goitrogens that can suppress thyroid function. Lightly steaming them for 3 to 4 minutes deactivates the goitrogens while preserving the beneficial compounds. Eat at least 2 cups of cruciferous vegetables every day, and you'll notice reduced bloating, better energy, and improved cardiovascular markers within a month. So how do you actually implement all of this? Let me give you a practical eating strategy that incorporates everything we've discussed. When you wake up in the morning, start with that cilantro chlorella drink I mentioned earlier for heavy metal detoxification. Wait 20 minutes, then eat fresh pineapple core for the bromelain to work on breaking down excess fibrin. Your first real meal should be around mid-morning, and here's what it should look like. Pasture-raised eggs cooked gently in butter or coconut oil, served with a large portion of lightly steamed, dark leafy greens dressed with lemon juice, olive oil, and crushed raw garlic that's been sitting for 10 minutes. Add a side of fermented beets, and you've just delivered massive doses of phosphatidylcholine for arterial repair, nitrates for nitric oxide production, allicin for heavy metal chelation and glutathione production, and probiotics for gut health. For your midday meal, focus on wild-caught fatty fish like salmon or sardines, prepared simply with black pepper to enhance omega-3 absorption. Serve it on a bed of arugula with a large portion of cruciferous vegetables like roasted Brussels sprouts or cauliflower. Add some raw sauerkraut on the side for additional probiotics and vitamin K2. Your evening meal should be lighter, perhaps a large salad with mixed greens, raw vegetables, avocado, and either more fish or pasture-raised chicken. The key is to eliminate bread entirely for at least 90 days while you implement this protocol. After 90 days, you can assess how you feel, check your inflammatory markers if possible, and decide if bread is something you even want back in your life. But before we wrap up, I need to tell you about something that's hiding in bread that most people have never heard of, and it's one of the main reasons why even homemade bread can be problematic for your cardiovascular system. We're talking about potassium bromate, a chemical additive that's used to improve the texture and rise of bread dough. It's been banned in Europe, Canada, and many other countries because it's classified as a possible carcinogen, but it's still legal in the United States, and it's found in most commercial bread products. What does this have to do with your heart? Potassium bromate is an oxidizing agent, which means it creates oxidative stress in your body. Oxidative stress is one of the primary drivers of arterial damage and plaque formation. It's like adding gasoline to the inflammatory fire that bread already creates. Even if you're eating organic whole grain bread, check the label carefully. If you see potassium bromate, bromated flour, or enriched bromated flour, you're consuming a compound that's directly damaging your arteries with every bite. The other hidden ingredient to watch for is partially hydrogenated oils, which are trans fats in disguise. Even though trans fats have been officially banned, manufacturers can still use them if the amount per serving is below a certain threshold, and they can label them as 0 grams of trans fat. These industrial fats are absolutely catastrophic for your cardiovascular system, raising your LDL cholesterol, lowering your HDL cholesterol, and promoting inflammation in your arterial walls. Always read the ingredient list, not just the nutrition facts panel. Let me bring this all together for you. We've covered 7 critical elements of the arterial reset protocol. Number 1, pasture-raised egg yolks with lemon juice for phosphatidylcholine and endothelial repair. Number 2, wild-caught fatty fish with black pepper for omega-3 absorption and membrane healing. Number 3, dark leafy greens lightly steamed and dressed with fat for nitric oxide production. Number 4, cilantro and chlorella for heavy metal chelation. Number 5, raw garlic crushed and rested for allicin and glutathione. Number 6, fermented beets for nitrates and probiotics. Number 7, cruciferous vegetables for estrogen metabolism. When you implement these 7 foods consistently while eliminating bread and other processed grains, you create the optimal environment for your body to repair arterial damage, reduce inflammation, and restore healthy blood flow. I've created a comprehensive guide that breaks down exactly how to shop for these foods, how to prepare them, and how to structure your meals for maximum cardiovascular benefit. It's called the Arterial Reset Food Guide, and you can download it completely free by clicking the link in the description below. I've also written an entire book on reversing heart disease through nutrition, called the Cardiovascular Code, which goes much deeper into the science and includes case studies from my clinical practice. You'll find the link to that in the description as well. Now I want to hear from you. What's been your experience with bread? Have you noticed any changes in your energy, your weight, or your health markers when you've reduced or eliminated it from your diet? Drop a comment below and let me know, because your experience might help someone else who's struggling with the same issues. And if you found this information valuable, do me a favor and share it with someone you care about who might benefit from understanding the truth about bread and heart health. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.